Our next inductee was a key member of the men's basketball team under Red Sarachek from 1953 to 1957. Over his career, he helped his teams to a 51-29 record to mark one of the highest career winning percentages of any player in program history. Also, he never endured a losing season. Known as a strong shooter and one of the most unselfish players on the team, he made everyone around him better. A co-captain of the 56-57 squad, our next honoree is Herb Schlussel, and introducing him will be his son, Richie Schlussel.
First, I want to thank my brothers who allowed me to represent our family and everybody in our family who came out to honor Dad. I once went to a UJA lecture given by Professor Alan Dershowitz of Harvard Law School. Just by a show of hands, who here has heard of Alan Dershowitz? He mentioned in the beginning of his remarks that he went to Camp Maple Lake, was of a certain age, and liked basketball. And I wondered if he might know my father, because my father also went to the same camp, was a similar age, and played basketball. Professor Dershowitz gave a flawless talk for 45 minutes, and just so casually mentioned his relationship with President Obama, Vladimir Putin, Henry Kissinger, et cetera, et cetera. After the lecture, I had a friend of Professor Dershowitz's introduce me to him, and his friend said, "Hey, Alan, this guy here, me, thinks you might know his father." Professor Dershowitz looked at me almost dismissively and said, "Yeah, who's your dad?" When I said Herbie Schlussel, he started to tremble and shake. Herbie Schlussel. He said, "My whole life I only wanted to be like Herbie Schlussel. I watched how he dribbled, how he shot, how he tied his shoes. We had a cheer for him in camp. Herbie Schlussel, is he still playing ball? What's he like? How is he? Herbie Schlussel." Until finally, the 30 people who wanted to ask him about President Obama and President Clinton dragged me away. I couldn't wait to go home and call my dad, and I told him the whole story. Professor Dershowitz, so excited. Herbie Schlussel, how's he doing, etc. And I'll never forget my father's words. He said to me, "Who's Alan Dershowitz?" This was the kind of effect that my father had on people when they remembered what kind of basketball player he was. Let me give you a background about why they felt that way. Here's a little bit from his career. He was the most valuable player of the Yeshiva High School League and won the first 2 championships that league ever had. He was then offered a scholarship to play at Syracuse University, but chose to play at YU instead. He was the captain of the YU team that had the best single-season record in history, 16-2. He played on TV and was famously called by the announcer Hot Hands Herbie Schlussel. He played against Will Chamberlain. Coach Lou Carnesecca remembered him very fondly 40 years later when they crossed paths. While statistics were hard to come by and different in those days before there was a shot clock and no three-point line, one statistic is worth mentioning. He was the player who had the best winning percentage for a college career at Yeshiva University. Funny how the best winning teams always followed my father around. Dad was as athletic as anyone. He was fast, graceful, and a dead-eye shooter. Simply put, he was gifted. But maybe as importantly, he also hustled, practiced hard, and valued teamwork. And he taught us all of those values in the many hours of sports we played with him. I had heard that in the early years of athletics at YU, there was some reluctance from the administration and rabbis to place too much emphasis on the sports teams. That perhaps this glorification of sports was unbecoming of a yeshiva. But I had also heard that as the YU basketball team began to play far and wide, in many of these destinations, the Yeshiva University basketball team was not only a basketball team. They were, in fact, the only Jews that some of these people in these towns had ever seen. And the basketball players, in truth, became ambassadors of the Jewish faith. Their excellence in sports and their excellence in sportsmanship was a true Kiddush Hashem. It is hard to imagine a better such ambassador than my father. Dad was certainly a legendary athlete, but then became an even more legendary person. He had a fantastic career as a dentist, and his patients were amazingly devoted to him. He was a loving husband, father, grandfather, and now great-grandfather. He was a leader in so many organizations in his community, and he was the nicest, friendliest person you could ever come across. Growing up, I inevitably saw my father carrying a tennis racket or golf club or baseball bat or basketball in his hand. But later in life, I was just as likely to see him carrying a Gemara, and he eventually went on to complete 2 cycles of Daf Yomi. As my brother Larry wrote in the ad for the Journal, he very well may have been the only person in history to have completed Siyam Hashas at Madison Square Garden, as well as to have played on the court at Madison Square Garden. There's a story that I think is a nice bookend to the first story I told. I was in the hospital this month when a nurse came up to me and said, "Are you Dr. Schlussel? And are you related to Dr. Herbert Schlussel?" When I answered yes, she told me that she was my father's patient for many, many years. This Irish Catholic woman then said, quote, "I don't think I've ever met a finer man in all my life." My dad is a modest man, as you'll hear in a moment, but I think these 2 stories perfectly sum him up. For many people, they never met a better basketball player or better man than my father. Congratulations, Dad. We are so proud of you and love you.
By placing this jacket across your shoulders, we hereby induct Hot Hands Herbert Schlussel into the Yeshiva University Hall of Fame. Mazel tov.
Thank you.
You want to put it on your hands? Yeah. Sorry.
Thank you. Let me find my glasses. Okay. Hello, everybody. I would like to thank all my family, my wife, my children, grandchildren, and all my friends who came here today. I would also like to thank the committee for giving me this honor and choosing me for the Basketball Hall of Fame. I want to relate to you how much fun I had and how it helped shape and mold and influence my life playing basketball for Yeshiva University. That is if I can remember the 60 years ago. The lifetime friendship and camaraderie with my fellow basketball players still remains to this day after 60 years. There were things I would not have had if I didn't play basketball for YU. A sense of pride, a sense of accomplishment, a sense of fulfillment. It definitely made me a better person. Every one of my teammates not only were great players, but also great human beings. I never, ever remember in 4 years any player yelling at another player for something he did wrong. They were all good guys who cared about their teammates, even though they had a burning desire to win. On the court, Marvin Hershkowitz, Red Blumenreich, and Abe Sodden were really tough guys, but off the court they were really pussycats. Then there was the coach, Red Sarachek. Everyone knows I cannot say he didn't yell or scream or have tantrums, because everyone saw him doing that all the time in practice and in games. But you knew it was done to make you and the team better. And together, he was a great coach and a great role model to me and had a great positive influence on my life. It took me 4 years to finally get to my senior year as co-captain of the team to get enough courage to say to Red that I think you could get more out of some players if you didn't yell at them so much. I never forgot his exact words. He said, "Schluss," that's what he called me, besides other names. If I stop yelling at you, then you know I gave up on you. College and basketball, it was not an easy schedule. 9 to 1 was yeshiva studies. 1 to 6, I lost the page. 1 minute. Oh, here we go. 1 to 6 was secular studies. We had to be at 28th Street in Manhattan, where we played and practiced 5 nights a week by 7 p.m., and I didn't get home to the Bronx till 10:30, 11 p.m. By the way, if we had a gym like you have here today, I'd still be in college. Between school and practice and games, I was always busy. But to tell you the truth, they were great years, and I would not change 1 minute or 1 memory. So thank you all again for this honor. Oh, by the way, to show you how much it really means to me, after 60 years, I still kept the YU jacket. It's still here, and I must say it's going strong like YU is going strong. Okay, it's a great honor to be here and to be inducted to the Hall of Fame. The yeshiva itself was always good to me. Basketball I loved. It really helped me mature, and it did many wonderful things for me. And all the friends that I have playing ball, we still have most of them, and it's something you just never forget. And you're always very thankful for what you have. And it was just a great 4 years. And if I could do it again, I would do it again at this point. If I had a gym, I would still be here in school. So I thank you very much.